Welcome back to Won't You Be My Neighbor. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Bill Gaylord. Bill, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
And today's topic is we are going to ask, how is it that celebrities buy houses? It's a process that nobody knows, but everybody is curious about. So we have a real-life celebrity in here today. Please introduce yourself, sir, for the audience.
Thanks for having me. I'm Jay Wasley, best known from the Ghost Adventures TV show.
Yeah, a celebrity. We have a celebrity here.
Guys, honestly, this is going to be a cool episode because we get to ask questions that I know you guys have been dying to hear, but we never get to ask because me and Bill aren't famous. Nobody cares about how we buy houses, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background. What brought you to Vegas? How long you've been in the process? And ultimately, what made you choose the house that you did?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. Started my career out there. I lived there for a while. Lived in the city of Philadelphia for a while. Then from there, I moved to a house up on top of a mountain in the Poconos, backed up to like 3,000 government acres. It was literally probably the most remote I've ever been. Yeah. And actually started to buy that house at one point, but then fell through. That was like the early days, and that was a mess. And I first got a taste of like, wow, this is not an easy process. Ended up not buying it. From there, moved to Nashville, lived out kind of just outside of Nashville for a while. And then finally moved to Vegas, been out here about 7 years now. And then finally got to a point where I'm wanting to buy a home and found this. It's about a little over 2 acres, a farmhouse just in northern Arizona, not too far from Vegas, And, I think why I picked that house is I like space. From everywhere I've lived in cities, I've lived so totally remote. Yeah. It's a nice middle ground. And I think traveling as much as I do and, doing what we do, it's nice just to kind of get home and just be away from everything. Yeah. Right now I live over in Summerlin and I love it. It's a beautiful area. It's still pretty quiet, but your neighbors are right there. Yeah. You walk outside, even just sitting in the backyard, I could spot windows. I don't know. It's weird. I like knowing that not
you
that I do anything, but
I
want to get chickens, maybe some goats, something like that.
The price of eggs. With the price of eggs,
exactly.
Man, you can start a second business.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
My wife would get a beehive.
Oh yeah, I've thought about a beehive, a bat house.
A bat house.
Bat house.
We want to buy one of those prefabbed. It's I don't know how many square feet, but you can just buy them now and they just plop it on your land. But a whole greenhouse.
Oh, nice.
So we'll do a whole indoor because it's a desert, so it'll still get hot in the summer. So we'll definitely have. Basically an indoor greenhouse garden and everything like that.
So you got a good plot of land out there.
Yeah, it's nice and it's great too because it's all already flat. They basically just broken it all up. It's just a big plot of dirt, really.
How did you decide to go down there? I mean, where did you find it?
Looking through. My wife is actually from Kingman, so
that makes it
her,
easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So we figured it's easier to be down there, and it's nice. It's a happy medium, and it's still close to Vegas. I still get here to be to the studio and do work and things like that. And honestly, the last 15 years with the show, I travel every other week. So as long as I can get to an airport or I could just drive, it doesn't matter where I live.
Yeah.
Did you ever look at anywhere like Pahrump, somewhere similar where you could get large plots of land, or did you guys always kind of want to focus in on Kingman?
Probably Kingman just because of logistical things. But Pahrump, I looked at land at one time. But even that, I think I started looking and the price was decent, and then I held off, and then I looked again, maybe even just 1 year later, and they started jumping up again. And I was like, man, it's going fast.
Yeah, man, the people with meth out there have finally started to really make it.
Right.
They've really started to turn themselves around.
They're like, if I just don't do meth for 1 week, I can save that money and buy a plot of land.
I could be rich. No, that's honestly people's first feeling about. We get a lot of people who travel from the East Coast, and they do research on Vegas, and a lot of people want space. That's literally the most number one requested thing we get nowadays. It's just space. And they're always like, hey, Brandon, can you take me out to Pahrump? And I always get a glee. I'm like, oh, I'd love to take you to Pahrump.
Sure, let's go.
And they get out there and they're just like, now I can
go back.
I mean, we can go. How far did you say this was from Vegas?
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm passing on that, man. Right. Kingman, Arizona. Yeah. So is it multi-acres? Do you have a full farm setup?
Yeah, I think it's about 2.12 acres, something like that. So it's just over 2 acres.
That's awesome.
Which is a good spot. It's not it's something I feel I can manage.
Right.
You know, you start getting more than that, it's like, all right, this is a lot to do.
Yeah.
Well, now you get to get one of those big, what are they called? The John Deere? You're going to get one of the riding
Maybe,
mowers?
yeah, kind of figure out, stock up on all the stuff. And
Play real life farm simulator.
get a good straw hat and overalls. And
How much time does your job take? Like when you're away, you'll have enough time to do the maintenance and everything of the house?
Probably not. I mean, it's tough to do laundry sometimes.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean, that's the hope, you know, is basically we shoot every other week, and we've been doing that. I've been with the show 15 years, and, you know, what's different about our show is a lot of shows you shoot a season in a few months.
Right.
Like you go out for like maybe 2-3 months, you'll shoot an entire season, and then you're off for the rest of the year. But with us, we've been shooting consistently every other week. Like I said, I've been 15 years. The show's been on for 17, I think, now.
That's awesome.
So there's no real break. But it's nice because we usually travel on a Monday. We travel home on a Friday. And then we have the whole next week off. So it gives me 10 days. So basically 5 days away, 10 days home.
Yeah.
So then your wife will take on the duties.
Yeah, so she'll pick up the eggs.
Hey, baby, you want a king? You want a king, man?
There you go.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think at this point, she knows your schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like when you bought
Absolutely.
the plot, when you bought the land, she knew. This isn't
You know
her
what
first.
you're getting into,
100%.
for sure.
I think it's cool because I mean, I know very little about how TV and the movie magic works. So you're saying the average show will go out there, even reality shows, they'll just film everything like in a huge batch.
Yeah, most of the
and then
time.
just kind of release it based like that. And you guys don't shoot that way.
Yeah, we just shoot nonstop consistently, and you know we have nothing to do with how they air the episodes. We just deliver them, and then they'll put them together in bundles and be like, "Here's a new season," and then they'll show, and then sometimes take a few months off, sometimes less. You know, we never have anything to do with that. Which, if anyone's watching as a fan, that's constantly like, "When are new episodes? Why aren't you guys releasing episodes?" Like it has nothing to do with us.
He's filming the content for you
filming
now.
it.
We're
He's
making
got
them.
it
We're
out
still
there.
making them, and they're coming.
Well,
you know.
so how do you find the content? I mean, is it easy?
It is. I mean, you know,
There's
everyone
ghosts
has a
everywhere.
ghost story, really.
Yeah.
The thing is, we've done easily over 300 episodes at this point.
That's crazy.
We've done multiple spin-off shows, so we've covered a lot. But we're always still finding, and I think what the tough part is, we're always trying to find something special. You know, we're not just going to do a simple thing. Like we want it to be, you know, we look into the story, the history, things like that. It's got to be a compelling story, not just anything.
Right.
So that's kind of what limits us in a way, but we still find them. We have a team of researchers that do a lot of research that are always trying to find different spots. And then honestly, fans, you know, in social media, there's always fans that send us messages that are like, hey, you know, my hometown has this, you should check out this spot. And then we basically collect that, we'll pass it on to the researchers, and then, you know.
So the fans basically create it for you.
Yeah, they definitely help out. They give us a lot of tips and kind of point us in the right direction.
Is there a reason you guys film in such a particular style? Is it just the most conducive to what you guys do? Is it something that you've always just preferred filming that way?
I honestly don't know why it originally started that way. It's nice because it gives longevity. It's, you know, you don't get bored. It's always keeps fresh. What's nice, another unique thing about our show specifically is that the four of us on the show, you know, we have full creative control too. You don't have a network. You don't have producers that are telling us what to do and how to do things. Like we're able to just go out and do our thing, you know. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a play on that and just kind of like, oh, let's just keep going. Let's just keep doing it. And
you guys are the directors.
Exactly.
You don't have anybody like.
Yeah. I mean, we have
focusing in
like
on
Zach on the show. He's like our lead investigator. He's the creator of the show. He's the executive producer. Like it's his baby overall.
Right.
But we all have that freedom, and we all, you know,
The
pretty
trust
much,
amongst
exactly,
yourselves,
to kind of do whatever we want.
Is that something you guys ever had to fight for or wrestle away, or is it something you guys have had since the beginning and you've kind of just kept it that way?
Yeah, no, they looked out. I mean, I came in 2 years into the show, but even from the beginning, they always had control, you know. I think what was nice, usually when there's TV shows are developed, there's kind of two ways you can do it. There's one, you pitch it. You just go, you have nothing shot, you have nothing done. You go to a network, you go to different networks, and you be like, here's my idea. The network says, that's great, let's do it, here's some money, go start developing it, start shooting stuff. But then in their eyes, from a business stance, they invested in it, they put money into it, they're developing it with you, they're going to say, we want this, and then they basically create the show with you. But with Ghost Adventures, they already pretty much had the show. They made a documentary that was pretty much the format and ready to go product, and then that did really well. Sci-Fi Channel bought the documentary, and then once it came to make it into a TV show, it was pretty much already established. So there wasn't that, you know, network coming in and being like, we're going to create this with you. It was already created. So they were able to hold on to the creative control.
So what network is it on?
Now we're on Discovery. It was originally on Travel Channel for the longest time. And then we went solely to streaming when they launched Discovery Plus, the streaming app. And then now we're on the Discovery Channel again, and still all the streaming stuff.
Right. Yeah. Streaming has really opened up the ability to catch things like this, right? Because when you're on a channel, when you're on a daily schedule, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, I missed the time.
Yeah.
Have you found any struggles in terms of buying and selling homes in your, because like, for instance, you guys have very engaging fans, right? Have you ever had a trouble where like maybe they wanted to buy your home, or when you guys go to sell your home, is it a very private affair?
I mean, thankfully it's been private. You know, there's nothing. I feel like there's been spots when like looking, and there's like a weird, maybe a stigma when like people know, like, oh, you're on TV. They're like, well, we're not going to come down on price. Or something. You know what I mean? Like they just assume you're this like,
celebrity.
You're Bill Gates, right? You're Bill Gates, right?
You got endless cash flow. It's like, no, we don't. Like we shoot every other week. We're still, going.
Yeah.
Like I'm not complaining. We do well, and I'm happy. But like it's like anything else. We still have to work. We still have to keep going.
100%.
But like once you're like, oh, I'm on TV, and they're like, oh wow, and they start seeing dollar signs, and it's
Dude,
like, no.
I'm nowhere near the level of which you guys are on, right? We run a small like social media channel. But if I walk into a house and the person in the house is like, oh, you're Brandon from Vegas,
right?
They automatically, negotiations are done.
Right.
They automatically think, oh, well, this guy, he can buy whatever he wants. He's on TikTok. It's like, bro, we're broke. Like, TikTok doesn't pay a salary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had that even like maintenance guys where they come over to do a quote. Like I'll have a guy that I was getting like landscape quotes. And the first guy didn't know who I was, had no idea, gave me a decent quote, and I got 2 other quotes. Another guy didn't know who I was. It was about the same. Third guy comes, he recognized me, and all of a sudden that happened to be the higher quote. And I was like, all right.
$10,000 to fix this light bulb right here.
Exactly. So.
I have a question for you. Yeah. So did you get financing on the house that you're going into?
Yeah, I mean, what they don't know about celebrities is that, like, actually, if you just do a blood oath to the Illuminati, they give you a house, which is nice. So, like, it was actually a pretty easy process. But no, it's traditional loan, FHA.
Yeah.
Going through that, and technically, it is the first time I'm actually buying a home. Like, I've gone through the process and got close, but this is actually the first time actually full on buying it. So I was able to get like a good rate, all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure you guys know better than I do.
So
they throw out letters.
Check your income, the assets,
There's
all
no
the
like
stuff.
special Hollywood bank that you guys get to borrow money from.
Right.
There's no secret.
Exactly.
It's FHA. Yeah.
No, just the FHA loan. I think the trouble that I find is proving your employment, proving your income.
Yes.
Because in the entertainment world, especially in like some other jobs, but especially in the entertainment, we're freelance. We're not W-2 regular employees. We don't work 9 to 5 every week. It's a very, like we shoot pretty much regularly, but sometimes we don't. We might take an extra week off. And so what I found in the trouble is like proving income. So they're like,
because you file a Schedule C self-employment, or
right.
you have an LLC
or something.
I
did for the longest time. I did. I was a W-9, and I would, have to pay taxes, crazy at the end of the year. The last few years, I finally I switched it so my company actually technically gets paid, and then I set up a payroll system and I pay myself through that.
Smart.
So now the taxes take out. Now I actually get a tax refund, which is great. And it's easier too. Then I'm like, here's my W-2s. But they were like, all right, but what I ran into, they're like, well, you own the company that you're giving us the W-2, so we're kind of like, we want to see more. Can we see your business stuff? And I was like, sure, here's my business stuff. And I was like, the business didn't technically make money, so like, please don't go by that, like, because all the money is invested and it pays me, or other people.
It's typical self-employment. You're self-employed.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it went through that, and then it was all good. And then literally just yesterday, we're probably about a week from closing. They're like, hey, the employment verification came back, and it said you've only been working there since March, which is based because like we have like renewal contracts. Like we'll have a contract, and like the last contract started last March. So like that's what they said, and I'm like, no, I've been doing this 15 years.
Here's
like,
a couple videos.
Yeah,
right?
you can pretty much check that. And then they literally like, all right, well we want your pay stubs for 2024 and 2023. So it's like, all right, so that's what I'll probably do after this is dig out, literally 50 something pay stubs and be like, here you go.
They want to see continuance of income is basically what they're looking at.
And that's something I've always been curious about, right? Because what if you get picked up by you're doing the same job, same profession, right? Yeah. But if you get picked up by a new company or a new channel, is that like me going from, I work at Joe's auto shop to working at Al's auto shop, right? How does it qualify?
Not necessarily, because we already, I guess the company that technically pays me is a company that's hired by the network. They're based out of New York. And that was another thing. So they're like, the company paying you is in New York and you're in Vegas. Well, like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then I had to they had me sign a special letter that was like, I travel. It's like, it's a whole weird thing.
Yeah. So your company had to provide like some sort of letterhead to the lender.
Just basically signing this is why the company that pays me regularly is in New York and I'm in Vegas.
Yeah. See, guys, lenders are just like us. They get jerked around by banks the same as we do. The same bullshit we have to go through.
And that's the thing too. I remember when we first started the process, I was like, I knew it was going to be a problem because back when I tried to buy that mountain house, I wasn't even close established to where I am now.
Right.
And it was a nightmare. And I was like, that kind of put me off. And I'd just been renting and kind of like in the back of my head, I was like, man, it's such a process to do all this. I don't want to do it. And then when I finally was like, I want to do it. And then originally I was like, well, my dad was like, I could help you out. And I was like, well, that could be cool. That way I don't have to worry about the headaches of that. He is a very straightforward. And he's like, and then I'll sign it over to you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, great, that could work.
Yeah.
And then we started talking to the mortgage company, and the guy right away, I was like, here's my situation. This is why we're thinking of doing that. And he's like, oh, no, you're fine. Don't worry. Like, easy. He's like, we get this all the time. Like, we got you. And I was like, all right. And I explained the whole thing to him. And then, like, every other day, it was like, well, could you do this now?
What about this?
Like,
what about that?
It's like, all right, well, actually this. They have a question about this now. And I was like, this is what I told you. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. It's typical. It's hard if they don't do it every day, the self-employment side, it gets a little bit difficult. So, But it's just trying to prove what you made in the past and that you're going to make it in the future.
I get it, but in a way, like, if I don't pay, you're going to get the house. So like,
it's like, hey, I've been doing this show for 15 years. Like, I'm pretty sure we know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow.
Yeah, like here's a link to Max streaming. Like that's my pay stub. There you go. Like, look at that.
Would you say you're unique? Forget just like celebrities in your group. Would you say you're unique in what you were looking for in a home versus what like the average celebrity is looking for in a home? Is space always the most important thing, or is it like location, wanting to be seen?
Right. For me, it's probably not being seen. Like I'd like to be able to. I would probably be a
incognito.
Wonderful hermit and just kind of disappear, come out of my cave when I need to, and I'm
gonna put myself on house arrest.
Right. Exactly. And I love doing things, but like there's part of me that's just like I could be a homebody, and then but then after a while, it's like, all right, let me go do something. Especially on the creative side, like I always want to get out and create. I guess special things, like I want to have space to have a small studio. I play music, so like having just at least a room dedicated where I can do that kind of stuff. But land, I'd rather have more land and a smaller house than a big house and no land, basically.
Yeah.
And people not peering in. Right?
Exactly.
People not peering in.
Yeah, or they're from the distance.
Yeah. Like I want to know you're there, but like I don't want to be able to hand you toilet paper next door, right? That's kind of the issue I'm in our place currently, where it's like I like the house, love it, right? But like, damn it, if my neighbor's going to the bathroom and they're running out of Charmin, like,
right? You're like, oh, here you go, hand it through the window,
toss it through the window real quick,
and I love the fans. We want to be able to do what we do without the fans and everything. But there's like a sense of, I don't know, like a lot of just knowing that, like, all right, I could be safe and alone and kept alone.
Yeah.
Not. I could walk out my house and, like even now, like, I even like being in a neighborhood, it's like I don't meet all the neighbors. I know a couple of them, but like I started meeting them and then they're like, oh, like they get excited. And then they're like, oh, my cousin this watches and I have to tell them. I'm like, don't,
please.
You don't have to tell everybody. It's okay. So like living somewhere where it's like I might only have like 2 or 3 people that I have to actually like interact and make relationships with sounds great to me.
If they tell somebody, it's going to take a month for anybody to show up to the place.
Right, yeah.
That's one of the things I was going to ask is like, how do you manage to keep things private? Are you going to end up putting the house, like, do you run it through an LLC? Are you going to put in are you going to do your best to keep like your name off of things?
At first it's just going to be through it.
Okay.
I've looked into things just for longevity, maybe doing a trust kind of thing and stuff like that. And
that would be a good
idea.
Starting
to get into that kind of, just for longevity. Basically.
Yeah, for privacy's sake, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because your fan, I mean, and it's the trade-off of fandom, right? Is that they are the ones who support, they are the ones who are diehard and loyal, but like sometimes they really want to engage with you.
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
oh, hey, I know you. Talk to me for the next, right? And you're like, I'm here with my wife.
Yeah,
Like,
we're just trying to.
I just want my beehive to get going,
Right.
brother. Like,
I've never had that.
Like, do you want to buy some honey?
do you want to buy? I got some eggs back here.
Yeah, autograph and a jar of honey for sale.
So when you travel, you travel out of Vegas here most of the time. Yeah. Do you get recognized all the time?
Yeah, off and on. I think like just recently I was driving to LA and I stopped somewhere to charge in like Baker or something, and I was just sitting in the restaurant just waiting, and then a couple came up and they're like, "Are you Jay?" And you're like, "Oh, we watch all the time." And they're always usually really nice, and you know, I'm more than happy to say, you know, hi and chat a little bit, and then, you know, they usually take a photo. And you know, I look at it like, for me it's like, oh, it's a minute, maybe 2 minutes of my life, but to them it's such a
thrill.
It's a thrill for them, and it's like, it's the least I can do. You know, it's I respect them and appreciate that. So it's, you know,
you have a good mentality towards it, because I've been in Vegas a long time, and there's a lot of celebrities who get big and they think like, oh, I'm too good to take a photo with you, or I don't have the time, and it's like, This is the biggest moment. This is the biggest moment of their life. They got to meet somebody that, like, you're their hero. Like they want to they don't want, and what I found, they don't want all your time. They just want enough to be like, yeah, he knows me. He knows my name.
Yeah, we had an interaction. We had a moment, and that goes a long way for them. That could, you know, who knows what they're going through. They could have had the worst day of their life, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, and it just turns around.
You made
just
turn the whole thing around.
Exactly.
A bad day, a bad week, a bad month.
Yeah, so it's the least they can do. It's tough sometimes. There's been times on the road, like, whatever, you get bad news, you're in a bad mood, you're just having a tough day, and you're just like, oh, and like, all right, gotta go film, walking out of the hotel room, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to, like, all right, here we go. And then someone's like, Jay, and you're like, oh, hi, like, hey, how you doing? And then they leave, and you're like, oh.
You instantly jump into character, right?
You kind of have to put on that face in a way.
Yeah, because no matter how bad your day is, for them, it's the best day of the year for them, right?
Yeah, and it's not just because it's like the same thing, like the whole saying, like, hurt people. Like, if I'm in a bad mood, like, I don't want to pass that along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I like that.
I was curious. You said you got into the show 2 years after it started.
Yeah.
How did you actually? How did that happen?
Yeah.
How did that transpire?
So yeah, they called me actually.
They called you?
Yeah. They originally. So when the show started, they would hire a sound guy locally wherever they would go. So, you know, but you're filming in the middle of Nebraska. Sometimes there's not a good. You know, no offense to anyone in Nebraska, but like, there's not always.
my family's from Nebraska.
Sound people.
Everything you're saying is correct.
Right. There's no like professional level, you know, sound person. You know what I mean? And then after the second year, they got picked up for renewal, and they wanted to bring on a regular full-time sound guy. I was working in TV and film in, you know, Philadelphia, New York, and I was doing other projects for the company that manages the logistics of the show. So then they're like, oh yeah, we know this guy Jay. He's doing great on these other shows. And then they basically called me and they're like, hey, do you want to fly out to Vegas and do sound on this show? And I was like, yeah, sure. It's just another gig at the time. I flew to Vegas, first time in Vegas. We drove out to Goldfield. We stayed in Tonopah, and we filmed an episode at the Goldfield Hotel, and it's been going ever since.
But it then made you got onto the show.
Yeah.
You were sound before, and then just moved into the acting piece.
Yeah. So basically, the show's divided into kind of two parts. There's the first half of the show, which is a lot of our research, history, the storytelling. Like, we do interviews, we kind of learn about the history, what's going on at the location, the haunted claims, things like that. And then the second half of the show is just the investigation. Lights off, pitch black, all this scientific equipment comes out, and we try to document these things that are happening. When I was doing sound, I would only be there for the first half of the show. So my job was to record the interviews, the research, all that part. And then when they investigate, I'm gone, which is still the same way, which is nice because it keeps the credibility. It keeps it like whoever's in there, that's it. There's no crew behind camera. You know, we shoot it, you know, now like we shoot it ourselves. Like what you see during the investigation is who is there. So then after a while, when we became close friends, we're a small crew, I started just throwing out ideas, and actually we did an episode in Jamaica at Johnny Cash's house down there, which was incredible because it's set up exactly as it was like the day he left. There's still shoes, there's clothes in the closet.
Oh, wow.
It was probably a trust thing where it just keeps going. And I remember when they investigated, they got an EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena, like where if you record and you know it's silent and you ask questions, but then when you play back, you get responses in between in the silence. And then you hear Zach asks a question. He's like, "Do you like Johnny Cash's music?" And you hear this, "Yeah." Like really come through. And like I said, I wasn't there because I was during the investigation part, but the next shoot we did, Zach's like, "Jay, like check this out." He's like, "I know you love music, like does this sound like Johnny Cash to you?" We're just in a car driving to the next location, and then I was like, "Yeah, that kind of does." And I was like, "You can actually do an analysis where you could take that sample, you could take a sample of his voice and do a waveform analysis, and then basically overlay it to the EVP you got and kind of see if the frequency range of the voice lines up and syncs up." He's like, "You could do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm a tech nerd. That's what I do." Like, yeah,
of course
I've been a nerd my whole life. Like, I love this stuff. And he's like, "You do it." So then he was like, "You do it." And he brought me in front of the camera to do this analysis. And that was my first time actually on camera.
Oh, cool.
And then from there, it was kind of, I was brought in to do special experiments or analysis, things like that. And then developed what we call the nerve center, which is like all the cameras come back to one location, of like robotic control, so you can pan the cameras around, look around. And then I would be the guy that's kind of like watching from base and be like, "Guys, like something moved here, or there was a sound in this room, go check that out." So then that kind of became my role more and more over
So you're
time.
the tech guy.
Yeah,
basically.
and then it kind of evolved from there, and then I don't even know how long, and then one of the guys wasn't on the show anymore, and then I took over more cinematography duties, and I stopped doing sound, because I would still do sound too. I'd do sound and then do the tech stuff during the investigation. And then I took over actually shooting the show, like the cinematography, and then still the tech part during the investigation, which is fun because set up the camera and then run in front of it, and, you know.
Filming your own shoots, man.
Oh yeah.
Were you nervous the first time when he just threw you in front of camera, or did it instantly click for you?
It instantly clicked. I think like I learned things over the years, like probably looking back and like the first few things, it's like, oh, that's a mistake, or that's a little thing, or you know, but I feel it was a natural fit. And that's the thing with us. We're just us.
Regular people.
Yeah, we're just us. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you're just hanging out with your friends, but you're filming it. You know what I mean? Like we're not trying to set up things. We're not trying to do any scenes, if you will, things like that. Like we're literally just, it's documentarian.
Yeah.
It's live in the moment. Even when we go out, we have some interviews set up, but that's about it. And then from there, we just kind of go. We kind of think of ourselves almost as detectives. Like we learn something, we're like, all right, now we got to go figure this out. And it's always on the fly in the moment. So it's real, just raw and natural.
You said the nerve center. It sounds like you guys have a pretty like tech forward setup. How big is, like, when you guys go to a site? How big would you guys say your location is?
It varies. I mean, we've done houses. We've done people's houses. We did a whole series called Ghost Adventures House Calls, where we went to people's homes and tried to actually help them with hauntings. But we've done massive abandoned hospitals. You know, we did Dracula's Castle in Romania. You know, so like.
Wow.
There's all varying levels, you know. We snuck into the catacombs under Paris and went through a mass grave from the plague times, which was insane.
Would you say that's the craziest location you guys have ever been at?
That was probably the most surreal location. I mean, first of all, like we just met these guys. Like we originally, so long story short, we had it set up where we knew before we even got out there, we had guys lined up that were going to take us into the catacombs, because it's a maze. Like there's like 300 plus miles of tunnels under Paris.
Wow.
And then there's the museum part, but like that's all locked off, but there's still 300 miles worth of tunnels. So we had it set up with these guys that knew the tunnels were going to take us down there. And then our shooting we got behind the one day, and we're like, we can't do it tonight. We'll do it tomorrow night. And they're like, well, we're not doing it now. And they backed out. So then we're in Paris, and we're like, this is we need this. This is the heart of the show. Like if we don't have that, what are we going to do?
Right.
And thankfully, actually, a fan walked by in front of the hotel and recognized and started being like, oh my God, hey guys. And we're all kind of like, yeah, we're having trouble. And she was like, oh, I know these guys. I know guys that know the tunnels. And it was literally like,
I know guys that know the tunnels.
Yes,
like it's just like a professor.
So then it was literally like, hey, meet these guys at this time at this intersection. And we're like, okay. So like we walk up and we meet these guys. We're like, hey. And they're like, you want to go down? We're like, yeah. And they're like, all right, let's go. And they're like, wait, right now? Okay, all right. And we just like follow them. They flip open a grate and start climbing down like into the sewers. And we're just like, all right, we just follow these guys just through this. And
Wow.
then we hike for miles, like hours and hours. We're wading through water that's like chest deep at times. We came across an underground rave at one point that he was like, wait, hold on. And then
underground rave?
Yeah, like
really?
when we first got down there, and he's around the corner, and he's like, let me go talk to him. Because, like, you know, if you're down there, you're not,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be down there necessarily. So like he was like, let me go check, and then I just hear yelling in French. I don't know what they're saying. And I'm just like, all right, like I don't know and I have a camera in my hand, and I remember like grabbing my pocket knife, like I don't know what's gonna happen here. Like it sounds aggressive.
Some Resident Evil shit going on, yeah.
And then he comes around, he's like, okay, they'll let us pass. It was like some like Lord of the Rings type, like,
oh wow,
you know what I mean? And he's like, all right, they'll let us pass. Like just don't point any cameras at anybody, like they'll let us walk through, like just so then we like walk through, eyes down, cameras down, and of course I'm peeking, and of course like we just walk through it.
Oh wow.
And then we went for miles again, and then we get to a point where there's a T-junction and there's a hole in the wall, and the guy's like, go in there, and he's like, we're 300 feet below the cemetery, and we're like, all right, and then we climb in, and it opened up to a big cave that was just filled with human bones. And it was like it was a plague pit. So like back in the day during the plague times, it was just literally a giant pit, and they just dumped everybody in there. There was no floor. It was just human bones. You're just like just crunching walking
the bones.
through. That was the most surreal place we've probably ever been.
I didn't. First off, so many things. There's a community.
I gotta watch this show.
There's a whole community down there.
Oh yeah.
Number two, they throw raves.
Yeah.
Next to the graveyard. And number
water.
three, there's dudes who are like professional maze runners.
Yeah, they know it. Yeah.
Wow.
Like they don't by heart. They don't leave.
Yeah, no, they didn't have a maze.
Breadcrumb trail behind
if they
you?
suddenly were like later and they dipped out and it's pitch black, there's no electricity or anything. So if they wanted to just dip out, they could have dipped out, and we would have been stuck down there for who knows. Yeah.
Right.
You'd have had to go bargain with the rave people.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you got into this, sound, did you have any like knowledge of the ghosts and background?
Right.
Did your like opinion change after being on the show and seeing what happens?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was actually always into it. It was kind of a weird.
You were always
it was almost like
into
a symbiotic relationship that formed. And the four of us on the show, we kind of talk about this all the time, how it's weird, like the four of us and our background and our history all came together. And when we come together, we get amazing paranormal activity.
Really?
Basically, like when I was a kid, I was into it. I wasn't raised any specific certain way. I was kind of had the freedom. I was the youngest child, so I had kind of the freedom to, and I grew up in a time where it was like, go outside and go play in the woods.
The street lights come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like I was a nerd. I was, I was thirsty for knowledge. So I studied different religions and different philosophies and different belief systems. And I was really into it. And I explored that stuff with friends. And I remember one time we were doing the Ouija board when I was a teenager. And, we were like, let's go all out and do the Ouija board. And we set candles. We had a water dish. We had a dagger. Anything ritualistic we could find. We're like, let's just make the scene. And we really want to do something. And then we're doing the Ouija board, and it says we're talking to a little boy. And it kept saying its name is Z and then O. And we're like, what is that? I don't know what any of that means. And we're like, all right. And then I noticed the incense smoke would blow down and go to the dagger. And I was like, that's kind of weird. So I picked up the dagger, moved it over here. The incense would change and blow over towards that dagger. And I was like, all right, wait a minute. I was like, guys, check this out. And like I kept moving the dagger. And everywhere I moved the dagger, the incense would go towards the dagger. So then I asked the Ouija board, I said, hey, are you attracted to the dagger? And it said yes. And I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. And I was like, could you come through the dagger into us? And it said yes. So we all stopped. We're like, all right, like, what are we going to do? Well, this is what we wanted. We wanted to go all out and get freaked out. So we're like, let's see what happens. So then my friend and I, we both decided that we'll hold the dagger and see what happens. And it was in a sheath. So like I'm holding one end and he's holding one end. We lay on our backs and we're like, all right, you can come through the dagger into us. And all of a sudden I just got overwhelmed sadness. Like basically like my toes to my head was just like this weird feeling of sadness. My buddy, and remember I'm on my back, my buddy jumps up, knees here, and he's staring at me and he's trying to pull the dagger out of the sheath. He's just like mad staring at me. It breaks. You have to press a button to do it. It breaks open and he pushes the knife towards me and I'm on my back and he's like, the knife's past my chin, like right here, and I'm holding him back shaking. like trying to stop him, and he's just staring crazily, trying to push this dagger into my throat. Probably lasts maybe 30 seconds. He goes totally limp, starts full of tears, crying, has no idea what happened, what was going on. And we're like, all right, we're done.
That's enough.
Yeah. So,
wow.
What?
Yeah.
that each section of that story, I'm like,
All right.
brother, I see why they put you on TV.
It was crazy, yeah.
So you've always had this connection to the paranormal. It's just been a part of you.
Yeah, and then just to kind of butt end that story, fast forward years later, I'm on the show, and we're doing a house in Oklahoma that basically they felt like a demon took over through a Ouija board. And this is the first time we're doing like Ouija board stuff on the show. And, everyone's like, who's going to do Ouija board? I was like, I'll do it. And like, at this point, I haven't told this story. Like, I haven't done a lot of podcasts or interviews. Like, the story isn't out. Like, I think I told like some friends and stuff, but like, it's not a known story. So I was like, I'll do it. And I'm doing it with the guy who owned the home, who knows nothing about me at all. It's the first time I ever met him. And we're doing it, and we start saying, and it's like, what's your name? And it's like, ZO. And I know I'm not moving it. And I'm like, that's the name that was saying before. And we found out this guy was claiming that there's a demon that's called Zozo, that it's this weird thing all around the world. You can look it up. It comes through Ouija boards. Like, it's not just a single thing. It's been all around the world. There's people that claim to interact with like a ZO demon or a spirit or whatever, claiming that it says its name is ZO, and then all hell breaks loose.
Wow.
So it's saying its name, and I was like, have we ever met? And it says yes. And then, like I said, I know I'm not moving it, and this guy knows nothing of me. And I was like, what did you try to do to me? I was like, have we met? And it said yes. And I was like, what did you try to do to me? And it says kill, spells out kill. And I was like, how? And it says stab. And I was like, all right, this is absolutely crazy.
You started looking around, you were like, there's no daggers around here, right?
Right?
That's...
Yeah.
The fact that you had that experience and that you were still drawn to it just shows such a deep connection, right? Because if that had happened to me, I'd be like, no way. Yeah. I will never be dealing with the paranormal
Well, I think
again.
it's still just that thirst for knowledge. It's that wanting to know. I think everybody has whether you pursue it or not, everyone wants to know what happens after this life, what is more to this world, this reality. And, I've been fortunate enough and lucky enough to be able to like do it as a career, but also I just love it. I want to know more. Like people ask like, oh, like, what's your theories? What's this? Like after doing it for so long. And I was like, I still don't know. Like I've experienced and I know there's so much more, but like I want to keep knowing more. I want to experience it all, even the terrifying to the, we have nice ghosts that we interact with too, and that's great as well. And, I've cried like having interactions with spirits was beautiful,
right?
But I want to experience it all. I want to acknowledge it and know, but like, I think the takeaway at this point is that without a doubt, there's more to this reality than just this. What it exactly is, who knows? I have theories, but I'm not one to say because I'm still learning. I'm still always experiencing. There's stuff like after 15 years, I've seen things levitate off the ground. We have stuff on camera that stuff literally lifts off and goes flying down a hallway. I've witnessed exorcisms, possessions, rituals, all kinds of the craziest things. And, you would think like, all right, at this point, like I've seen it all. What else could happen? And we'll go on a shoot and just something still blows my mind. And I'm like, all right, now back to the drawing board. Like
I see why
so it's still fresh and fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
I see why you say you still love your job. Because when you first said that, I said, okay, well, what is it? The locations, but it's learning new things. It's a seeking of knowledge that keeps you excited with each place, right?
Exactly.
Because you go, how crazy is that for you to have a paranormal experience somewhere here in America, and then you hear about someone across the entire world having the same experience, and it's just like, not only are you connected, but it lets you know that this isn't a singular experience.
Exactly.
Right? You're not the first person having this moment. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think what's cool about it too is, and I've heard from fans, is that like it brings people together. You back up 20 years, you would be considered crazy talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like people have experiences, but they had to kind of hide it and not talk about it or think they're crazy. And I'm sure there's people that got locked up for things, so now like people be like, oh, I'm not crazy. That's what we found when we did the House Call series. It's like trying to help these people. They're literally like, we think we're going crazy. Like we're experiencing this, and we go in and we're like, all right, well, let's see. And we'll document stuff and be like, you're not crazy.
You're
like
not
we
going crazy.
experience this as well. And it
That's
is happening.
interesting.
So,
that has to be one of the greatest feelings to share with somebody. They felt so alone for so long. And you guys show up and you're like, no, brother.
It's okay.
You're good.
You don't have to go to the padded room. It's all right.
You're not crazy. I think that's one of the best things you can give to somebody, man. Holy crap. I'm blown away. That story you shared, like I could feel myself being like, what? And then,
and if we have time, actually, so just a quick another bookend onto the bookend is randomly when I was living in Nashville, I was at a Waffle House. This is just kind of a funny random thing. I'm by myself at a Waffle House, just like eating some hash browns or whatever. And there was two girls. I was sitting at the bar top. They're down at the bar top, and I hear them chatting. I'm not eavesdropping, but you just hear everybody. And they're like, "Yeah, like, are we gonna do the Ouija board again tonight?" And they're like, I don't know, that was kind of weird last night, like, talking to whatever that Zozo thing was. And they were like, yeah, let's do it again tonight. And I'm just like, turning around, I'm like, wait, what? I was like, did you just say Zozo? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, don't. I was like, just stop. Don't. They probably thought I was some crazy guy, like, sitting in a Waffle House, like, don't do that,
2 a.m. in the morning.
But I was like, and I told them, and they're like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, this is what happened. And I don't know if they ever did it or not, but
wow. They probably did.
Probably, yeah.
I think the audience would be remiss if I didn't ask you, like, when you were looking at houses, did you ever feel, do you ever step into a house and feel like, oh, something's off here?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think it lines up with, there's something called the stone tape theory, where basically organic surfaces have a memory. They have life to them. So it's been proven through water experiments through Japanese scientists that projected positive and negative energy to water. And basically they would take water from like a beautiful spring mountaintop, freeze it, look at it under a microscope, and it was beautiful crystals. Then they would take water from like the gutter of the city, freeze that, and it would be disfigured, malformed crystals. So then he took that and he would project positive energy to what was the negative water, being like, I love you, you're beautiful, refroze it, now it suddenly formed beautiful crystals. And he did the opposite to what was beautiful water. He would project negativity and anger and threats. And when he froze that, it became disfigured and malformed. And it basically, he repeated this over and over again, and it proved that positive and negative energy actually affect us on a molecular level and changes the molecular composition of water. And you figure the human body is 70-80% water, so that shows you what positive and negative energy can actually do to us. And not only just humans, but organic surfaces like wood, stone, things like that. Like this has water in it. It has a memory. So if you're in a place that there was like a mass murder massacre, that negative energy is literally soaked into the walls and the molecular structure of the organic surfaces. And when you walk into that room, you could feel that,
Can you see how a house being haunted would have a hard time selling?
I want to follow up what you just said. About 3 years ago, I'm showing this woman. She's a psychotherapist. I think that's the correct term. She's a therapist for young teenage girls who are going through some real deep shit.
Yeah.
And I'm showing her houses. And, growing up, I grew up in I grew up in a black household, right? So we believe everything, right? And I'm showing this house to this lady, and she walks in. And like the second we walked in the room, she goes, it's cold in here.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, it's like 120 degrees outside. Yeah. She goes, no, let's leave this house. Something's wrong. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on, you know? We step out of the house, and the neighbor, creepy young kid, just sitting on the porch, goes, she died in there. And we're like, what? She goes, oh, yeah. She goes, the last owner, killed herself in the house.
Yeah.
And this lady looks at me, she goes, I fucking told you.
I knew it, yeah.
And I was like,
you could feel it.
You could feel it. Yeah. She literally walked in the house and instantly was like, no, yeah. Something's out. Right?
Do you have to disclose that in Vegas? Because I know certain states, I think you have to disclose, right? If there's a murder
the house
or something.
Caused the death.
Okay.
Is the rule in Las Vegas.
Right.
If the house, like if something fell and killed the person, or if they tripped on a step and died, if the house was the cause, yes. If someone passed away in the house, no. But a lot of people tell me they can feel it, man.
Yeah. What about because we investigate a lot in Vegas, and there's the whole the mob history, and you go out to like the newer neighborhoods that are on the edge of the city, and there's stories about when they were building the house and digging in, they find bodies. Like, is that something that they have to be like, hey, before you buy this, just so you know, your backyard was a graveyard.
The builders do their best not to disclose that kind of stuff.
Sure, but that's not a bone.
That's not a bone. Yeah, especially in Vegas, it's everywhere. If you go to some of the old mob houses, like east of like UNLV, where we call Midtown, where like things went down. Oh, you can definitely feel it when you're walking through there.
Right. Yeah.
You can 100% know like, oh, something happened here, right? And it's something I never was able to place until this woman just said, oh, it's cold in here, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's the sensation I've been feeling, man. Right. This has been eye-opening, man. I really, it's funny because I really wanted to pick your brain about houses and how celebrities buy houses and stuff, but the way you phrased it about people seeking knowledge and wanting to feel connected about situations in their life that 20, 30 years ago they would have been called crazy, but now we all realize, no, we're sharing these same experiences, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, this has
been fun.
Yeah. Austin,
awesome.
producer Austin's waving at me.
Yeah. So I was telling you beforehand, I think you have to ask Jay about how haunted his current house is and potentially his new house.
Oh. Are you willing? Are you cool with, because I know the audience.
Sure. Yeah, no
so is your current house, was it haunted when you bought it, or did you haunt it yourself?
Did you bring them in with you?
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know how many homes you go back that I feel is haunted. I think it really started hitting the Nashville house. I had friends that would stay over, and they would say they wake up and there's a woman standing at the front of their bed. There was a certain corner in one of the guest houses where like people would stay, and they were like, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw something standing there. And that corner lined up directly with my bedroom, where in the morning or like 3 a.m. my dog would wake up and just stare at the corner and start growling at nothing. And I'm like, all right, there's something weird here.
There's something there.
But then my Vegas house, I kind of condensed everything I've collected, if you will, like, because naturally over the years you collect random weird things, and like the stone tape theory, the stuff with positive and negative energy, like these objects can contain energy, and possibly even spirits. So I don't investigate my home. I don't try to interact. I have people that come over and they're like, oh yeah, like there's stuff here, like they've had experiences. I try to just shut it off, like leave work at work. But I do have one room where I keep all like my artifacts, things I've collected, and that room definitely would be like probably more of the epicenter of things.
Yeah.
And I hear things and experience stuff, but I try to just block it out. I don't even want to feed into it and let it have any power.
You have enough going on outside.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't need to worry about this.
Do you feel like at this point in your life, like almost the paranormal is drawn to you the same way you're drawn to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of, like people always talk about Ouija boards, and they're like, don't do Ouija boards because you're opening up a portal, you're opening up a communication line. We do this every other week. It's for 15 years. We're opening these communication lines. We're opening these lines to communicate with spirits, not always through Ouija boards, but through different devices, spirit boxes, even just communicating, just being like, hey, is someone here? Like, and I think spirits, and that's why, like I kind of mentioned, like the four of us get together and things happen. I think things are now drawn to us as well. And we go to a haunted location. One, it is haunted, but there's things that are still just like, I don't know if it's an energy thing or just from doing it for so long, but I feel like they are drawn to us in a way. We've had people say once we locked in a location, a couple weeks ahead of time, someone might have investigated it and our names will come through. Things like that. So it's like the spirits almost know that, like, we're coming.
Yeah. They're aware of you.
Exactly.
Now.
Yeah.
Did you look into your new house for any issues?
No. It's kind of rather just like, not know.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's best to not know.
Yeah, all I know is it's a fully remodel, so it's all all new stuff at least.
And you have room to go.
Exactly.
So get away
if I need to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I try to make like the rest of my house minus that one room is very zen. I try to create a more zenful kind of space, so that way it's full of positive energy, and and two, like I feel like I don't feel there's necessarily anything negative in my house, but like there's definitely probably spirits attached. But I try to like almost give them like, this is your space. So like you don't need to be hanging over my bed in the middle of the night. You don't
gave you a room.
Like this is your space. Hang out here, have fun. There's a poker table. Like enjoy yourselves.
Like roomies, right?
Exactly. But yeah. Last thing too, like Zach has the Haunted Museum downtown, and that's full of artifacts. And if you ever go there, like you could feel those things and experience in that. And we've filmed there so many times, and we've studied objects, and like some of the most haunted objects in the world, and there's definitely, they carry that energy, they carry those spirits, and you could feel it, you could document it. We've documented so many things, just on objects.
Yeah.
I believe that 100%. 100%, because I've been to the museum, and you do, it's like, you get a chill. It's every single time too. we usually come in here and have people sit down and we try to teach them things about real estate, but I think it was the opposite today, man. I think me and Bill are sitting over here like, oh yeah, and then I feel like I have 3 hours to pick your brain about questions, man.
I always thought it would be fun. We'd do a crossover, like a haunted house flipping show.
There you go.
That's why they pay this guy the big bucks, bro.
He's got the ideas. He's that guy. He's
that
always
show would do so well,
that
right?
Would.
Like flip. See, I can't give
flipping
haunted houses, right? Like selling Sunset,
right?
That'd be good, man. Hey, thank you for joining us, man.
It's been fun. Really had a good time.
Appreciate it.
This is hands down, like, we've probably done 90 of these. This is hands down.
This is the best.
The most fun that either of us has ever had on this show, man. That's cool. I know you have a busy schedule, but after you close on your house and get everything up and running, man, we would love to have you back just to pick your brain, see how the beehive's going, see how the chickens are clucking.
Absolutely.
And just honestly, it's just going to be a cover for you to tell more stories and share that shit with us, man.
That'd be great.
This is rad. Hey, as always, Bill Gaylord. Bill, let them know how to reach you.
BillGaylord.com.
And as always, Brandon from Vegas, just throw me in Google and reach out to me. You guys leave us a comment below. This is probably the best episode we've ever done. I know you guys are mostly going to have questions for Jay and not us, but leave them in the comments below. We love responding. You guys' feedback has been really cool lately, so thank you guys. And as always, come and be my neighbor. Peace, 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 peace.